1914, a summer of hot sunshine and fragile peace in Europe shattered in a single moment. On June 28th, in the streets of Sarajevo, a young Bosnian Serb nationalist named Gavrilo Princip pulled the trigger on Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie. The assassination of the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne was the spark that ignited the powder keg of European alliances and started the deadliest conflict the world had ever known. The spark was quickly turned into a blaze. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia on July 28th. Germany, honoring its alliance with Austria, declared war on Russia and France on August 1st. Britain, bound by treaty and the need to protect Belgium, entered the war on August 4th. Before the month was out, Japan had joined the Allies by attacking German colonies in Asia and the Pacific. The First World War had begun. It was a conflict on an unprecedented scale. 28 nations would eventually take sides. Over 65 million men were called to arms. The war claimed the lives of more than 20 million soldiers and civilians. Entire empires crumbled, and the world order that had existed since the 19th century was destroyed forever. The first 3 years of the war were dominated by the Western Front. On both sides, commanders believed in the power of massive armies and rapid offensives. The German Schlieffen Plan aimed to knock France out of the war before the Russians could mobilize. But on the first day of battle, at Mons on August 23rd, the British Expeditionary Force held the line against a much larger German force. The plan collapsed. From there, the war settled into a deadly stalemate. Both sides dug in along a 400-mile front that ran from the Swiss border to the North Sea. The result was the most fortified battlefield in history. Trenches stretched deep into the ground, layered like a multi-story parking garage. Soldiers lived in mud, lice, and constant danger. Shells rained down day and night. New weapons changed the face of warfare. Poison gas, tanks, and airplanes turned the sky into a deadly battlefield. In 1915, the Allies launched the disastrous Gallipoli campaign in the Dardanelles. They hoped to knock Turkey out of the war and open a new front. Instead, they suffered 250,000 casualties and withdrew in humiliation in 1916. Meanwhile, the war dragged on in the east. The Eastern Front saw brutal battles like Tannenberg in 1914, where the Germans crushed the Russian army. In 1916, the Somme became one of the bloodiest battles of the entire war. The British and French threw 1.1 million men into a single offensive. They won only a few miles of ground. Over 60,000 British soldiers died on the first day alone. The French lost more than 200,000 men in 4 months. The Somme proved that war had entered a new, more terrible era. On the other side of the world, the war was felt even more deeply. Britain and France relied on food and raw materials shipped from Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa. When German submarines began sinking Allied ships in 1915, these nations feared they might run out of supplies. The United States stayed neutral for the first 2 years. But the sinking of the Lusitania in May 1915, the discovery of the Zimmermann telegram in 1917, and the German U-boat campaign finally pulled America into the war on April 6, 1917. American troops and supplies turned the tide. At the Battle of the Somme, American forces helped the Allies break through German lines in the final months of the war. The Allies launched the massive meuse-argonne offensive in September 1918. By the end of October, German morale had collapsed. On November 11, 1918, at 11 o'clock in the morning, the guns fell silent. The Armistice had been signed. The First World War was over, but victory came at a terrible price. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, was meant to punish Germany and create a lasting peace. Instead, it planted the seeds of another world war. The war had redrawn the map of Europe. 4 empires, the German, Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, and Russian, had disappeared. New nations rose: Poland, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, Finland, and the Baltic states. The world had entered the age of mass politics, mass production, and mass destruction. The lessons of 1914 to 1918 still echo today. The war showed how quickly alliances could turn friends into enemies. It proved that technology could bring both hope and horror. And it reminded us that peace is fragile. One spark, one assassination, and the world was plunged into 4 years of hell. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this documentary, please give it a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. In our next video, we'll look at the Treaty of Versailles and the birth of the Second World War. Until then, stay safe and remember the sacrifices that made this history possible.